Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty incredible, the intersection of ancient philosophy and modern wealth. We're going to look at how a really deeply integrated ancient perspective called cyclic economics could actually offer a profound and maybe even absolutely necessary solution to our broken modern financial systems. We're pulling directly from the concepts of Daesoon thought today, and as you'll see, it completely reframes how we think about money, community, and purpose. Let's get into it. So take a look at Sisyphus here. You probably know the story, right? Greek mythology. He was condemned to an eternity of rolling this massive boulder up a mountain only to watch it roll right back down. Honestly, it's kind of like checking your email inbox on a Monday morning. But jokes aside, the source material we're exploring today draws a really striking emotional parallel between Sisyphus's pointless torment and the spiritual anguish of the modern worker. We live in an era of literally unprecedented material wealth, yet so many of us are just trapped in this Sisyphus-like cycle, totally exhausted and unable to find true satisfaction. We have the wealth, sure, but we've completely lost the meaning. So why is that? Here is our crisis to cure roadmap for today. We're going to cover the modern economic paralysis, the iron cage, the root of economics, cyclic economics, and finally, the Daesoon thought solution.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the modern economic paralysis.
To really understand the cure, we first have to understand the depth of the disease, right? Our source text identifies 4 critical pain points that are basically paralyzing our modern world. You've got the disappearance of economic ethics, the endless ideological conflict between capitalism and communism, and of course, a severe environmental crisis. But look at that first point. This is the human cost, the collapse of economic motivation. The text specifically points out that in highly developed nations, like those in the OECD, soaring suicide rates stem directly from this tragic collapse of meaning in work. People are essentially treating their own emotions as commodities, selling them for a paycheck, and it's leading to this profound, bitter resentment toward the whole concept of economics.
Which brings us to Section 2, the iron cage.
So how exactly did we end up here? Well, sociologist Max Weber actually hit the nail on the head. He argued that humanity essentially traded the enchanted garden of our magical, tradition-bound past for a modern world that is completely, ruthlessly rationalized. We built this cold, highly efficient system that only accepts economic logic and just denies anything else. He called it an iron cage because it locks us into a linear pursuit of profit while completely stripping away human emotion, meaning, and history. We absolutely gained efficiency, but the price we paid for it? Nihilism. You can really see the stark philosophical divide here. On the left, we've got Western linear thought. It's highly rational, focuses purely on future outcomes, isolates the individual, and according to our source, ultimately leads straight into that iron cage dead end. But then, on the right, we have Eastern cyclic thought. Think of yin and yang, or the natural changing of the seasons. It's all about eternal recurrence. In a cyclic worldview, suffering isn't just a pointless boulder to push. It's actually an integrated driving force for growth and development. It brings balance to life.
All right, moving on to Section 3, religion, the root of economics. Okay, get ready for a massive historical plot twist. If you thought economics was born as this cold, mathematical science of numbers and charts, well, actually, scratch that. It's way deeper. Let's look at the ancient Eastern concept of economics. The word itself comes from an abbreviation of Gyeongse Jemin. And what does that actually mean? It literally means to manage the world and save the people. Just let that sink in for a second. Economics wasn't originally designed for pure, ruthless efficiency or, accumulating the biggest pile of gold. Its fundamental original definition prioritized human ethics, societal welfare, and salvation. Economics was originally meant to care for the community. And it's fascinating when you trace the historical flow of economic thought, because you really see how interconnected the East and West truly are. Back in the 16th century, John Calvin's religious doctrines actually helped spark the spirit of Western capitalism. This proved that religion and economics were historically tied together. But then, in the 17th century, Jesuit missionaries like Matteo Ricci started translating Eastern philosophies and bringing the civilization spirits of China back to Europe. This sparked a massive cultural exchange. By the 18th century, Adam Smith, the so-called father of modern economics, wrote The Wealth of Nations. And incredibly, his famous concept of the invisible hand, it was deeply influenced by the Eastern Taoist concept of wu wei, or non-action. Western capitalism literally has deep roots in Eastern religious philosophy.
That leads us right into Section 4, the power of cyclic economics. So, if economics and ethics were never actually meant to be separated, how do we fix our current mess? The source text uses this profoundly intuitive metaphor for a healthy economy, the human body. Think about your blood circulation. Blood flows continuously, right? It takes resources from areas of surplus and naturally delivers them to areas of deficiency. If the blood stops flowing, the body dies. In the exact same way, a healthy economy absolutely must constantly flow. Circulation resolves the tension between the self-interest of the individual and the needs of the community. It's not about hoarding, it's all about movement.
And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of Wu Wei, that Taoist principle of non-action we mentioned earlier. Now, that doesn't mean just sitting around doing nothing. It's about a natural, harmonious, laissez-faire approach. It acts as the original invisible hand. It was meant to naturally regulate human desire and market forces, without crushing the human spirit or locking us into an iron cage. Balance was always the goal. And finally, Section 5, the Daishun Thought Solution.
So how do we bring all this together? Let's listen to this incredibly powerful quote from the Zhengyang text, which is a central scripture in Daisen thought. Money is a thing generated by the principle of circulation and used accordingly. It is not something to be sought by force. Wow. That completely flips the script, doesn't it? Money isn't just some static object you hoard in a vault to prove your worth. It is a dynamic, circulating energy. When you try to force it or hoard it, you literally break the cycle. Wealth has to flow.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Daesun thought takes these massive puzzle pieces of world religions and just fits them together to form a perfectly circulating economic system. Look at this synthesis. It maps Confucianism straight to production and labor. Buddhism governs the social contract and distribution. Taoism handles the view of wealth and savings, and Western religion brings communitarianism and the circulation of goods. Daesun thought doesn't reject any of these. Instead, it harmonizes their strengths into one unified, macro-level cycle that balances the individual with the entire community.
So what does this all mean for us? What are the actual, actionable takeaways to escape this iron cage? Daesun thought gives us a really clear roadmap. Step 1. We absolutely must actively prioritize ethics over pure, cold economic efficiency. Step 2. We have to harmonize our individual desires with the needs of the wider community. Think back to that metaphor of blood flowing through the body. And step 3. We must cultivate continuous circulation. By keeping resources, empathy, and value flowing, we can naturally resolve those deep systemic conflicts that paralyze us. Which leaves us with one final thought. We've seen how the ancient concept of Kung Sejamin defines the true root of economics as the duty to manage the world and save the people. Wealth was never, ever meant to be a boulder we endlessly push up a hill all by ourselves. It's meant to be a current that we help flow. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Knowing what you know now, how will you help wealth, whether that's money, knowledge, or even just empathy, circulate tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it changes the way you look at the world. Keep learning and keep circulating.